to small and medium-sized firms, drawing on the £15 billion Small Business Operation Fund established in September by the European Investment Bank, which Irish banks have so far refused to access. Assist such firms by ensuring that government departments and agencies settle their bills within 10 days rather than the current 30-day time period. Establish a monitoring group made up of representatives of the government, small and medium-sized enterprises and the banks to monitor the lending practices of the financial institution, and that is urgent. Strengthen the role of the county enterprise boards, but by removing the limitation on the type of enterprises the boards can support, and raising the limit on the number of jobs they can create above the current figure of 10, which is ridiculous in this day and age, as well as a significant increase in Measure 1 funding, which is the capital funding necessary to maximise their potential for job creation. Now, I'll ask John Corda, this is a simple motion in its content and its intent, but it addresses an issue that is pressing and vital. Small businesses in Ireland are facing a credit famine. The banks are simply not extending credit to small and medium-sized enterprises. Instead, they're taking every opportunity to tighten terms, to impose charges and restrictions. And there are very serious charges and restrictions being imposed upon people and on existing customers. So what chance has new customers of getting a penny when the way they're behaving with existing customers? This is not new, Alaskan Cora. It has been going on for months, but it was not addressed and it is now at crisis levels. Had action been taken when this problem first came to light, we would not now be in this extremely precarious and difficult position. What is at issue here in the Labour Party motion is the survival of hundreds of businesses and possibly tens of thousands of jobs. What we are now facing is not businesses closing because they're not profitable, though that will happen. What we are facing is profitable businesses closing down simply because they cannot get access to credit, and that is a shame. And the government has to take responsibility for that along with the banks. Every business relies on credit. You need credit to fill the gap between completing a job and getting paid, between paying somebody for necessary supplies or simply meeting your payroll and getting paid yourself. It's as simple as that. It's about cash flow, not profitability. And yet across the country, a small business is finding it harder and harder to access credit. A recent ISME survey found that 54% of companies surveyed had been refused applications for new finance and or the extension of existing credit lines. 54%. A striking feature of the results is that a similar survey in August revealed that 20% of the companies at that stage had difficulties, confirming the escalation of the crisis in less than 3 months. So in less than 3 months, we can actually gauge and measure the extent to which the crisis escalated, and in parallel terms, measure the apathy and lack of conviction of this government to tackle a crisis that was as apparent as the nose on one's face. Of the 46% of successful firms, 38% could not meet the conditions attached by their banks to secure additional funding. Some banks are engaging in acts of usury. They're adding charges, adding 40,000 or 50,000 for rearranging finance, that type of thing. That drives people out of business. They're putting 1.75% onto loans, where people are already struggling. So it's time to call a halt. We helped out those banks in their hour of need, but we in the Labour Party didn't, because we wanted to put conditions attached to that guarantee so as to ensure that they would not behave like as if they're behaving at this point in time. We wanted to make sure that the liquidity that they were now going to be guaranteed, that that money would be made available to small and medium-sized businesses. And it hasn't happened. And no amount of figure contortions or distortions can obliterate that fact. It hasn't happened. These are not new businesses we're talking about. 50% of these companies are in existence for more than 10 years, with 74% of them in existence for 20 years or more. There's no mushrooms here, Minister. They're existing, long-standing businesses suffering as a result of the credit crunch. The problem has reached a stage where the Small Firms Association estimate that up to 800 jobs a week are being lost in the SME sector. 800 jobs a week leaching out of the sector. That is a phenomenal figure. And what will happen next year unless there's dramatic and immediate intervention? And that's why we have placed this motion here tonight. The question that it must now be focused on is one in which the government has an obligation directly to address. Why, after the government, as it says, on behalf of the Irish people, riding to the rescue of the banking sector, has the government not yet prevailed upon the banks to loosen the purse strings and make credit available to small business? Why is the government which rushed legislation through the House of the Oireachtas so as to protect the economy from the havoc that would be wrought from a banking system collapse, not now exercises muscle to put in place a plan to combat the recession and provide the necessary stimulus to reflate the economy, and to take a leaf out of our neighbours' proactive and positive attitude adopted in their pre-budget report yesterday? Is it ineptitude, inertia or indifference that gives rise to this perplexing state of affairs? I refer to a local business to illustrate the points I'm making, and it's a local man, Johnny Owens, of Owens Concrete Limited, Gall Milestown, Knockdrin, Mullingar in the county of Westmeath. Situated in a small, beautiful rural area outside Mullingar, indeed home to my Labour Party colleague and land agitator, Councillor Dan McCarthy. If Dan McCarthy was here, Minister, the roof would be gone. He started his business in 1972 and with his family built it up over the last 3 decades, up to 140 jobs. And in recent days he had to let off his staff, people, as he said, whom he knows well and with whom he worked hands-on beside them for many years. And it pained him to have to tell them last week, with just 4 weeks or so to go to Christmas, that he could no longer hold them on. And he's deeply concerned that the 85 or 90 people left, that if things don't loosen up, he will have to let another 50% of the workers go, as he will have no work for them. This is an area right in the heart of rural Ireland, Minister. So you can imagine the heartache and turmoil that these unfortunate people are going to suffer over the next few months. People with commitments to mortgages, car loans, school fees and other household expenditure. So is there any concept on the government side of the magnitude of what's happening out there in the real world, the real economy, which is not sheltered in any shape or form? He said, and I quote, Minister, from the local papers, "I am expected to be forced to get rid of more workers when the government's farm waste management scheme comes to an end in December." I visited him at his home last Saturday. I wanted to know, could I use his name? I know him myself and his family since my early childhood days, and the man could not fathom out how the government could not see its way to extend the deadline for the farm waste management scheme, which farmers were also calling for, because there's 8,000 farmers out there. Some of them would work that's ready to start. Did you know there was a bad summer? There was 3 months you wouldn't put a duck out in the land, don't mind putting out machinery. And we wanted that extended because 3 months of inclement weather during the summer. Is there any figment or pretence of joined up thinking or integrated government operating on your benches over there at all? Surely any money expended comes back into the exchequer through income tax, keeping workers employed, VAT, and through helping protect other downstream jobs, especially in a very challenging environment for the rural economy in this instance. Now, what he has to say represents what one hears from the thousands of small businesses across the country, who provide a backbone of employment in so many of our communities. It is what you hear from Patricia Callan on behalf of the Small Firms Association, from Mark Fielding on behalf of ISME and other leaders of this industry.